In section 7.2, we talk about arithmetic progression and geometric progression. We're going to study that right now. Arithmetic progression will be about adding. Arithmetic progression will be about adding because it's arithmetic. For example, a progression to me is like a procession, a parade of numbers in a row. It goes forever. That's why we put ... How do we jump from 2 to 5 and 5 to 8 and 8 to 11? It needs to be the same kind of jump. Well, we can subtract 5 minus 2 and see that we added 3 to get there. We can subtract 8 minus 5 and see that we added 3 to get from 5 to 8. We added 3 to 8 to get to 11. So we found the pattern, and we could easily figure out that the next number is 11 plus 3 more. It's 14. Let's do the next few examples. What's the progression? What's the jump from 5.1 up to 6.2? We find it by subtracting the right number minus the one before it, and we get 1.1. So we're adding 1.1 to that number. See if it works here. 6.2 plus 1.1, yes, that gets us to 7.3. So we're going to add 1.1 again to 7.3. We're going to add 1.1 to 8.4. We're going to continue adding 1.1 for each jump. And that's arithmetic progression because we're adding or even subtracting. Those are arithmetic. Here's the next one. We went from a -2 to something unknown, and from there to -8. Well, that's harder. We don't know what the in-between number is. But notice we have 2 jumps. So here's how we do it. We take the number to the right and subtract the number on the left, -8 minus the -2. We always subtract that number. That makes -6. And then we're going to divide by 2 because we had 2 jumps. We're going to spread -6 out over 2 jumps. That's -3. We're going to subtract 3 from -2. We're going to subtract 3 from -5. That gives us -8. Subtract 3 from -8. Subtract 3 from -11, and so on. That's arithmetic progression because we're subtracting the same amount every time. The next one's really difficult, but we can start this way. How many jumps are there? So you see there's 4 jumps. In fact, there's 3 blanks. That makes 4 jumps. Up here there were 1 blank. That makes 2 jumps. Are you noticing there's 1 more jump than there is blanks? That will always be true. The number of blanks altogether, add 1, that's how many jumps you have. So we have 4 jumps, and we're going to subtract 61 minus 17, the numbers on either side of those blank jumps. 61 minus 17. That's 44, and because we had 4 jumps, we're going to divide by 4. That spreads that 44 out over 4 different jumps. We're going to add 11 each time. If it's right, we'll end up at 61. 17 plus 11, 28 plus 11, 39 plus 11. Sure enough, 50 plus 11, we got there. So remember this process when there's blanks in the midst of your arithmetic progression. Pause this and go back and take notes. Meanwhile, I'm going on to geometric progression. Arithmetic progression was adding or subtracting the same number as you go along. Geometric progression, geometry, is when you're multiplying or dividing the same number as you go along. So we're going to find what number to multiply or divide to get from 4 to 8 to 16 to 32 to the next number. All we have to do is divide. 8 divided by 4. This number divided by the previous number. 16 divided by 8. 32 divided by 16. So we're dividing by 2 each time. But going this way, we're multiplying by 2 each time. So we're going to say 32 times 2 is 64. To compare that with the last one, we were finding what number we added every time or subtracted. But now that we're doing geometric progression, and they will tell you which one it is, you're going to multiply or divide each time. The number's getting bigger and bigger, so we know we're multiplying by 2 every jump. Let's look at this one. What's the jump between here and here? It's going to be the same as the jump from here to here because we have a progression. They go in order and make a pattern. The way you do it is to take one number and divide the one before it. 12 divided by -6. That's -2. So we're multiplying by -2. -6 times -2, yep. 12 times -2, yep, -24. So here we're going to multiply by -2. -24 times -2. Positive 48 times -2. And so on. I can do that one. 96 times -2. Ooh, no, this one's negative times a negative is positive. Notice how it's negative every other number? That's a good clue that we're going to be multiplying or dividing by a negative, because that'll shift it back and forth. Positive, negative, positive, negative. This is how many jumps from the number we know to the next known number. 2 jumps. 1 blank, 2 jumps. But we're not going to be subtracting these numbers. No, that was for arithmetic progression. We're going to be dividing 2.5 divided by 0.1. That's 25. And we're not going to be dividing by the number of jumps like we did here. We divided by 2. We're not going to do that. We're going to, well, I'll let you figure it out. Let's use this as an example. How do we get from 2.5 to 12.5? Well, these are right in a row, and it's geometric. So we can take this number, 12.5, and divide by the previous number, 2.5. Do that on a calculator, and you'll get 5. The jump up was 5. The jump here is times 5. 12.5 times 5 is 62.5. The jump here is 5. 0.1 times 5 is 0.5. 0.5 times 5 is 2.5. Let's go back to this question that I didn't answer for you. If we divide 2.5 divided by 0.1, we get a number. And then how do we figure out that 5 was the jump? We square root. There was 2 jumps. That means square root. The square root of 25 is 5. 5 is the jump every time. The numbers are getting bigger, so we're multiplying by 5. Let's look at the next one. How many jumps are there? Well, there's 2 blanks. That means there's 3 jumps. So I'm going to take the numbers on either side of the blanks, -192, and divide by 3. That gives me negative 64. Now what do I do with that number? What do I do with a negative 64? I don't square root it, because that would be 3 times 8 and 8 times... I don't think I square root it. That wouldn't give me negative 192. How many jumps were there? 1, 2, 3. Instead of square rooting, I'm going to cube root. Because there was 3 blanks, I'm going to cube root. That means what times what times what gives me negative 64. The answer is negative 4 times negative 4 times negative 4 gives me negative 64. Negative 4 is the cube root of negative 64. So I'm going to multiply by negative 4. The next one I'm going to multiply by negative 4. Negative 12 times a negative is positive. I'm going to multiply 48 by negative 4. 48 times negative 4 is negative 192. You can check yourself that you landed at the right number. So the process we did both times when we were missing blanks in between was to grab the numbers on either side of the blanks, divide them, and then count how many jumps there are, and that's the type of root you have. In this case, it's a cube root. If there was only 2 jumps, it would have been a square root answer.